Hey guys, what's up, and welcome to another episode of the Goodcast Show. So, as you know, what's the hottest topic in Malaysian politics recently has definitely been Himpunan Turun Anwar. It happened over the weekend, and it has definitely gathered a lot of different reactions to it. Of course, from the opposition side, they were happy with the turnout of 25,000, despite the earlier mentioned hope of hitting 1 million, even as some were saying. But still, 25,000 is a very good number. It's turned out to be the largest gathering or protest since Anwar has since PH has taken government, and it definitely has had a lot of different reactions, mixed reactions in the aftermath. Of course, we've seen a lot of people from the PH side condemn many of the protesters' lack of knowledge on politics. Many of whom were struggling to answer the questions, kalau Anwar turun siapa naik? No one could answer. So many things are taking place and taking shape after this protest. But what does it mean? What does the protest mean to Malaysian politics, to the future, to the upcoming general elections? We're going to take a dive into all of this. And to facilitate this discussion and to give us more insight from an academic perspective is another return guest to the podcast. Please welcome Dr. Azly Rahman. Doctor, how are you? Welcome to the podcast. Truly good to have you back.
Thank you for for inviting me again.
What was your takeaway from Himpunan Turun Anwar? What did you feel it accomplished? If it accomplished anything at all? What are your thoughts on this whole protest?
It shows that Malaysian democracy is pretty much alive. I think it's vibrant, and as long as we don't. Don't go overboard, as long as we are legally allowed to protest, and these are our rights in a democracy. So I think it should be fine. And although I say, maybe it's going to be a series of things happening before the next general election, and let's be civil about even protesting, right?
But is that fair, though, for us to harshly judge the young? I do see a lot of videos popping up online of, as I said, members from the ruling government. I mean, not ruling government, but the parties that make up the ruling government, condemning these guys and saying that, look, if you should know your facts and all that. But I was thinking, like, I remember a time when I was young, a younger man, and I had no clue what politics was. And I think a lot of us start from that as a different level of awareness in politics, right? So is it harsh to judge the young, that's saying that they are not as politically aware as perhaps the adults?
No, definitely. I'm not judging the young. I think they're very intelligent. They're very aware. They're very outspoken. They value free speech, and they are in a world in which they are, attuned to so many different perspectives through the media, everything. However, the reason why I say that this is nothing new, Himpunan Turun Anwar is nothing new, because if you look at things, there are historical markers, and we talk about protests. For example, right? In 1950s, there was this movement, Hartal movement, the protest against the British, and then came the anti-Malayan Union, as you remember.
Yeah.
Right? And also May 13, 1969 was a major event, although it's not a protest. It's one of the darkest moments in history that constitute a bloody riot and against this and that, right? And it translated into interpreted into racial riots, and then the fourth historical marker is we have the rise of Mahavirism, right? For 20 years, all right, there are protests, there are this and that, but because Dr. Mahathir had, his hands on power for 20 years, so that constitute a way in which these protests were able to be controlled, for example, right? And then the fifth historical marker, of course, is 1998. After the, if you recall, the Asian financial crisis, that was the protest of Undur Mahathir, for example, not Turun Anwar, Undur Mahathir, right? That's Anwar Ibrahim went out to protest when he was, ousted from the government, and this massive protest, including also to march to the residence of Dr. Mahathir, if I'm not mistaken, that right? And then we have BERSIH, and then if you recall, we have Hindraf. Massive protest. And then COVID-19 came and no protest because nobody can go out except.
Yeah, exactly. We were all locked indoors. Yeah.
Oh yeah, except in America, Black Lives Matter. So that's another story, except in protest because people were so angry, and that changed, overturned a lot of things in American politics. And finally, we have Turun NAJIB, and then today. So with all these historical markers of protest, like I said earlier, that democracy is alive as long as we allow people to express their points of views and also be able to be to protest in a civil manner, and there's no there's no pepper spraying, there's no massive amount of oppression
Water
happening.
cannons.
That is fine,
Yeah.
yes. So this is, I think, it's indicated that we're moving somewhere towards this kind of protest, like in many Western countries, right? So,
But is it a good thing though, in your opinion?
it's neither good nor bad, depending on which point of view you're taking. But it is healthy for democracy. It's people need. I mean, one of the things that we do is we forget to say that, just like the philosopher Jean-Jacques Rousseau, said in his work, that we have surrendered our will, half of our rights, to the general will, meaning the state. We vote. And when we vote for somebody, we expect changes happening, right?
Yeah.
When somebody promised us that, oh, I'm going to do these things, right? I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10. And then suddenly many of the things are not being fulfilled. So as a consumer, as a client, as what you call it, people who put this leaders in power, so we have the right, and the young people have the right to say that, look, wait a minute, we help you in BERSIH, we help you in this and that protest, we help put you in power, and then suddenly you turn around and say that, oh, wait, let's wait. It's difficult, it's a long process. So naturally, from that point of view, that whatever numbers that people quote, 5,000, 50,000, 50,000, 100,000,
25,000. Yeah.
even 1 million, numbers
Yeah.
are numbers, right? But important thing is that there is a concern here, and the concern will evolve to the coming general election.
One thing that I was looking at when I was looking at the videos after Himpunan Turun Anwar was that the stark difference between Himpunan Turun Anwar and BERSIH was that BERSIH had that iconic image of, I remember, Tien Chua sitting in front of an FRU truck as it's moving forward, right? The symbolism of, or the of that image sort of was a rallying call for the Malaysian people, because it sort of portrayed this oppressors, the oppressees are going against the oppressors. The ants are going up against the grasshoppers, right? And that was such a powerful narrative, because I do not believe that everybody at the BERSIH rallies were politically aware as the best minds in the country. I'm sure a lot of them were also there for very trivial reasons, right? But in the aftermath of BERSIH, it was this the images of people being shackled, water cannons. It was us against them. This was the whole thing. The Malaysians rising up against the man, which is something that Himpunan Turun Anwar did not have. Is it possible that perhaps NAJIB would not have, or BN would not have lost so badly if they had allowed BERSIH to go on the way Anwar allowed Himpunan Turun Anwar to go on?
Excellent question. BERSIH was a multicultural coalition of people, and there was a beginning of protesting against, massive protests after, again, like I say, the reign of Mahatherism, right? And then where freedom of expression was suppressed, universities were clamped down, and the courts were were tamed and everything. So
Yeah.
so all those things become part of opening up a Pandora box. But it was a massive multicultural. I remember people crying, because Najib, the Toshi Najib, went down, right?
Yeah.
And people were so happy. Then and that was the second again when installation of the new coalition. But it was like a second Mahathirist revolution, right? So that's interesting part of it. And it was symbolic also because that was also probably the first time that people get access and started using social media. Massive amount of things. In all these things, the enabling factors are the technology, for example, right?
Yeah.
So that's again. But for this Himpunan Turun Anwar, it's a different it's a different feel altogether. I feel because it seems that feels that it's not a multicultural coalition. It is about issues that wants to be resolved, for example, judicial issue, and also the personal suit by this individual against the current sitting prime minister, and corruption and things like that. Which is, corruption is nothing new, and the reason why I think the reason why the rally Turun Najib was because there were massive amount of information being given to the public on corruption. How much is taken in, and the visual images of the billions of dollars, and that I think is not it's a global attention. It created global attention, so they created that. But again, going back to it, right? BERSIH was a different kind of protest altogether. And many of the people in BERSIH, including PKR, including all those people now, GEP, are in power. So, so that's another topic in itself. When you fighting against the oppressor, you have all these ideals, you have all these promises, you have all these things that you want to do this. We have the Buku Jingga, for example. I remember I have
Yes,
a copy
I remember
of it.
that.
I was sent a copy of it, and also met some of the many of the leaders in PKR before they became ministers. We did get a chance to sit down and meet. But however, people observe that things are not. Where are the promises? We put you in power. We protested for you. Some of us went to jail, for example. Some people, and Tian Chua, for example, was protesting. In the style of Tiananmen Square, for example. Remember the loan? Yes. So that's a powerful image. It's
very
a symbolic
powerful.
image. Very powerful, right? So in a way, today it's different, right? But it is perhaps the beginning of the peaceful protest, and yet we cannot put aside the fact that there is a concern, right? There is a concern that things are not going the right way as promised. So,
do you think that this protest will lead to other protests? Do you think that this has enough momentum to evolve into bigger protests, much like how BERSIH did with BERSIH 1.0, 2.0, etc.?
Depending on the financing. If people have money, then
you'll get bigger.
You'll get bigger,
I get what
right?
You mean.
You get bigger.
Yeah.
Right? And number one, depending on financing, just we cannot dispel the fact that politics also requires financing, right?
Definitely.
It doesn't matter whether US politics or Russian politics or Malaysian politics. The more people have money put in, then the things the project will be bigger and will be more efficient, effective, right? And that's something that is a reality, I think. And also number two, again, you mentioned earlier that the young people know when they ask the question, why, who's next? If not Anwar, then who's going to be the next leader, for example?
Prime Minister, none of
right,
them could
Prime
answer.
Minister. That I think is not the right question to answer. Not the right question to ask. I think it gives us the whole idea that politics is about either or. All right, politics is not about this protest indicates something that is not right. So in the process of making things right, in the process of making people going to the protest understand and be able to articulate why they are protesting, then we have to have this space of knowledge and consciousness that we need to have. We need to have intelligent voters. We need to have not just people who vote because they are given this and that handouts, right? Right before the protest, all right, we have $100 ringgit given. Yes, everybody appreciates that, but ideologically, psychologically, what will that do to people, right? Are we going to vote only because they are given handouts? Why not give the billions of dollars given handouts into projects that will create all the in the constituencies, entrepreneurship project, for example, so that the young can feel a sense of, right? I'm not saying that handouts, even in the US, right? You get tax refund, right? You get money back, for example, this and that, based on how much you pay and based on whether the government has a surplus or not. The same thing, but do not give money to the voters, and then after that comes the election.
When we look at the responses of these young people who are attending, right? I think earlier I did mention that I do sympathize with them. because I don't think it's fair to, for not you, but the people out there, especially a lot of these political figures, online political figures who are really condemning them. I thought it was really unfair. One guy even said, he said this statement, made the statement, he said, saya harap zuriat Puan Cik Ahir dengan, I thought that was a bit too far. I mean, why are you going that way, right? It's
Yes.
very inelegant. But
Yes.
when we look at this, can we infer that perhaps Undi 18 was a mistake? Because this is evidence that the young may not be ready to be voters. And just because you're young does not mean that you have the right idea or the right vision for the future of the country.
That's a very good question, Vinod, because I once wrote about this. Undi 18, right? Undi 18. Are
Undi
we
18,
are
yes.
young ready, right? Okay. So from a perspective of political consciousness, again, any country would have its youth. There's different degrees and levels of political awareness. Are you going to be an 18-year-old? Are you going to be able to differentiate between this and this party in terms of looking at, okay, what is the mission, vision, what is the future of this party if I vote for this in this coalition, for example? Am I able to understand? Do I have enough knowledge to determine whether my vote, which is a very sacred, right, politically, secularly sacred, I'm giving this my half of my rights, so that this group of people can govern me. Am I doing the right thing, or am I just gambling out of the fact that because I'm 18 I can vote?
Yeah.
So this is the question, right? Mature enough, right? I don't want to compare other countries because other countries have their own cultural context and cultural awareness. But in the United States, for example, students or children as early as the elementary school, in the primary schools, are already doing role playing of political campaigns. Be aware what is a political process, and by the time they reach middle school, which is the upper elementary school, they're already learning civics. What does it mean to vote? Who is the president? How many years of the president can? 4 years, and the second term is 4 years. What is a primary, for example? And when is a vote? What do you do when you vote? The day of your voting, and when is the new president installed, for example? So again, from a very young age, this has already been structured into the education of it, so that by the time they're 18, they can vote. And in some cases, by the time they're 21 only, they can drink beer, right? In some other states. This is the thing.
Yeah.
So again, the level of maturity. But do we have that?
But is this lack of awareness among our youth an engineered reality? Or is it just complete negligence on whoever is responsible? Is it engineered, or is it an unfortunate resultant of being negligent?
It is a failure of education. Had we have people who understand what education means and nationalism means, and understand philosophy of education, we talked about this in the last series, that if we put somebody there who understands where the country is going futuristically and where the country is now, and nationalistically, how do we want to develop, and then what's the scenarios of change that's going to, that's happening 20, 50, 100 years from now, had all these things be factored into the grand design of education, then we will have all these ideas of evolving democracy, and democracy being alive, democracy being practiced in the classroom. Democracy is not just about election. It's not just about voting. Democracy is what a teacher does in the classroom. How the teachers educate the children in the classroom is democracy. Relationship between the dynamics of the classroom itself is a lab. Is a good lab to study for democratic process. Just like I'm sure people who study education will read the work of American philosopher John Dewey, talk about democracy and education and all the things that create consciousness. So I think it's not systematic, also what you call it engineered reality. It is a reality that we did not confront earlier because we did not have we did not have the right group of people to look at our education system and say, wait a minute, if Finland can do this in 25 years and structure everything and change from a very chaotic to a very oppressive education system, and now is the best in the world, then what do we study from that? And politics and education cannot be separated. Politics and theology cannot be separated. Politics and philosophy, especially, cannot be separated. All right, you have to have the the vision clear, and also the operating principles, and right to the training of the teachers themselves.
Interestingly enough, some of the responses from the protesters were that, especially those interviewed and those clips that are sort of making their rounds on social media, they were when they were asked, kalau Anwar turun, siapa akan naik? Who's your choice to replace Anwar, right? And while I mean, I do agree with you. I think that's a wrong question to ask. Definitely, the Himpunan Turun Anwar was just more of a marketing gimmick to sort of make it more appealing and more out there. Some people, most of them answered members of PAS, Sanusi, the Menteri Besar of Terengganu, and one guy said KJ, right? Okay, so let's just remove that KJ thing for now, because definitely that's not going to happen anytime soon. But as a Muslim, as a Malay Muslim, do you think Malay Muslims should, I mean, is this a worrying trend that they are voting on racial and religious lines only without putting into consideration the portfolios of the people that they want, regardless whether they're Malay or Muslim? That's fine. I'm okay with that. But I'm saying, is it concerning for us that they are now voting only on religious lines and party lines and not on your body of work? What would you advise them?
The question is that we always mistake when, for example, we ask a question, right? If not Anwar, who's who then? Right?
Yeah.
The question is not about individuals; it's about ideology, right?
Right. Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah.
Individuals are shaped by ideology, and ideologies are created by individuals. The point here is that how long will it take to change the perspective that it doesn't have to be an ethnocentric leadership that would not benefit the multiculturalism and plurality of the nation, and who will not be able to mediate all this contradiction and the conflict between race and religion. So do we have that kind of leadership? Do we have that? Is that ideology governing us now? The question is no, right? It is still that us versus them, this group versus that group. We call it this 70% versus the 23% versus the 7%. Everything is about, and it's so alarming, and also to know that we have come this far in independence. I've written this a lot of this pieces of an article saying that why don't consider everybody Bumi Putra? Everybody, the new Bumi Putraism is about having the consciousness that we are Malaysians and we deserve the rights. All other Malaysians, each Malaysian deserves the right to be treated as such. It doesn't matter whether whether you are this and that race and religion, and that, in a sense, we will, in years to come, in decades to come, we will be able to elect leaders without considering other things. But the reality is this: this is an ongoing ideological march that we maybe cannot stop, because again we are living in the shackle of ideological trap that still continues to look at things from the race religion perspective, right? So that, to be a good person who upholds the constitution, who are able to to juggle things, the difficulty of running a country based on race and religion, and a benevolent leader who's again not corrupted, using the crude word, right? And who understands that life is short, right? And you become a leader out of a calling, right? You become a leader, you want to lead people, so you better do a good job in leading people, and you better be a good person. You better be a philosopher king. You have a philosopher ruler. You better understand everything and be able to mediate, and we will be happy, rather than have this and that group continue the ideological divisions that we continue to have.
A large proportion of them were Malays, right? Malay turnout, right? Especially from, I mean, I was asking around, and the numbers of, say, the Indians and the Chinese turnouts were very small. When I hear this, I'm concerned because, in your opinion, and as you said just now, you said BERSIH was a multicultural rally, right? I'm not worried about the race issue, but what my concern is, come next elections, is this a sign that we will see a large group of Malaysian voters just not turn out on voting day? Is this sort of like the crack on the wall, or the tremor that the sign that an earthquake is on its way, kind of thing? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Do you take it like that?
Well, perhaps not. Perhaps we can also expect that not many non-Malays will turn out on this, because again, the alternative offered is very Malay-centric and theocratically centric. So there's also that element of it. That's a perspective that I take. Another second thing is that going back to technology, maybe we are tired because we consume so much media. We are too stuck in our phone that everything is about everything
Politics.
is about scrolling. One thing, there's another thing. Okay, there's an image. Then
you have
TikTok,
these two guys who keep talking about politics.
Right,
Me and
look
you.
at TikTok. It said that somebody was caning there's effigy of caning. Okay.
I want to get to that as well.
Okay, it's fun. Okay, it's not fun. Oh, this guy's getting called by the police for doing all these things. Oh, the same guys who were protesting us, many years ago was really there, coming back and everything. Oh, okay. So it becomes, we as media consumers cannot focus on something. Right, but essentially,
so basically, you're saying that there's too much noise, and that's why we can't focus, and maybe that's why we just become more apathetic to rallies like this, and we just don't care.
The focus is not. The enemy is that you're fighting is not there, right? Unlike during the times that I mentioned earlier, that the protests of Hartal, the anti-Malaysian Union, everything, where we are not, our mind is not colonized by media. We are not fragmented. We are not psychologically deranged with all these things. We know what it is. In order for I think many revolutions succeeded. It doesn't matter whether it's a Russian Revolution of 1917 or whether it's a communist revolution led by Mao, or any of the revolutions that brought down, what the times, the massive, all these things really successfully happen when there is a gap between the rich and the poor, and there is the chaos in the economy. And number three, there's not much media to distract people from all these things.
We have seen that the Prime Minister has come up with several statements, a bit of tongue in cheek. Where there was one where he said they didn't invite me, so I didn't go. Another one statement, he said that they didn't. I'm disappointed because nobody raised any issues during the rally, right?
Yeah.
And then of course you see Nga Koming come up with talking about the amount of garbage and all this. It was, I think, 20 metric tons or something like that, 20 tons or whatever garbage on that day and all that. How do you rank, or do you grade the response of the government in the aftermath of this protest? Do you think they have been amicable? Do you think they have been childish? I mean, how do you grade it?
Maybe to soften the impact, wherever impact is given. Number two, maybe to sort of, in a way, the saving face. And probably number three, to diffuse the seriousness of it, as seen from the protesters. Number four, perhaps number four, to divert the attention. It's not about what's the issue of the protest, but it's about garbage, right? And all those things has to be analyzed, to think clearly, the representation of what people say in public also can be analyzed through the point of view of representation of it. What is it being said? What actually is it? What is a rhetoric? What is a reality of things, right?
Yeah.
So, and from this also, this will perhaps fuel a bigger protest the next time, right? This is a test protest, maybe, during the time of Anwar Ibrahim. And the next one is maybe going to be bigger, because it's always action and reaction, always opposite and equal, right? But I also like, and also this is what I teach my students, to look at things from the perspective of complexity theory, or the butterfly effects, right? You don't know where things are going. Something can create something, can create ripples and create this and that unintended consequences, and unintended consequences will become bigger and overrun the original motifs, and then suddenly other things, and then it creates chaos. And especially with the network society today, network means that with the availability of the media, phones and everything, instantaneous communication, a lot of things can be chaotic, right? People
Yeah.
can put fake videos of riot and violence, and then suddenly many others will come down and do a massive protest in a violent way. We are in an age of manipulation. I mean, media manipulation, that cannot be that cannot be denied, that we are consumers and we are producers, and we have and we feel powerful when we produce something that can create impact of things. And we have YouTubers, we have this and that, we have commentators, we have this and that to talk about this. It's all up to us to choose how do we juggle the truth and also the half truth, and also fake, the falsehood, and also evict the fake news or fake videos and everything. So it's difficult. It's not easy to live in a world in which we have been bombarded by cognitive dissonance every second, every minute, every second. Right?
But how do you think this protest will fuel the momentum of Perikatan Nasional? In the lead up to this, there has been many commentators saying that perhaps they've gone silent. There's a lack of shadow proposals, shadow budgets, and whenever the government tables something, there's been people saying that they focus a lot on race. It's all about race with them. Do you think this will give them that push and perhaps maybe swing more voters to their side, or is this just something that I guess was more than a flash in the pan?
Okay, there is a perspective that although it's about it's focused on race, you must remember that there's 70% of the race there.
Mm.
Might be 50,000 people, 100,000 people at the rally. But what about those who are not at a rally but also hold the same sentiment, right? We cannot say that, oh, they don't know what they're doing, they're just following. Okay, right. Again, like I said earlier, that there is a message being given here. And number two is that what is the next thing, right? What anyone who wants to win a war will go all out. Sun Tzu out of war. Know thyself, know thy enemies, 100 battles, 100 victories, right? And of course, there are other things that Sun Tzu, we don't have that time to talk about it. But it is not just a war that's happening now during the Turun Anwar, but as I alluded to you earlier in this talk earlier, that starting from the 1980s, they have two personalities. When you talk to Mahathir, one is Anwar Ibrahim, right? There's a long history of enmity between both, right? To the point that it led the opponent to create a new political party, and after now a new coalition, and now becoming the prime minister. And the story has not ended. Right? Don't know when the story will end, but this is the longest nation story ever told, political story. You ask my novelist mind opinion of this.
Yeah,
It's
it is actually.
ingrained.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah,
Ingrained.
yeah.
You have to look at it from the point of view of the 1997 financial crisis. That's the beginning of the genesis of it. You have to also look at the thing why Anwar Ibrahim brought into UMNO, taken away from PAS, for example. PAS wanted Anwar Ibrahim, right? And then what was the motif, to soften the impact, bring in, and then after that, you could see the history. I mean, this is what we're talking about here, right? History. And now, the person who was brought in as the deputy prime minister, who was ousted as deputy prime minister in 1998, is now the prime minister, right? And then, and the prime minister who ousted him is still alive, right? God bless
Yeah.
his 800 years old, right? So it's a very unique and interesting story there. when they talk about crisis, conflict, climax, conclusion, and resolution. But to me, there's no ending. It's like a butterfly effect. One thing leads to another, this and this and that. When you have structured an ideology that you want this and that, for example, Parti Islam PAS, right? One of the parties that have a very clear vision, right? Clear vision means that they want an Islamic state. It's very clear that it's Islamic principles, and there's no compromise in this and that, right? Even if it's a compromise, then it's for the purpose of mediating things, but the goal is to gain power, right? So that itself negates the idea that if this individual is no longer there, then the story is over. No, the story continues. Right. And also, not just that, but politics is also about leaders going up there and gaining power and grabbing power, whether it's the sophist way or the Machiavellian way. You have to control the ideological state apparatus. This is what I'm quoting one of the Italian thinkers, Antonio Gramsci, once said that, right? If you control that, the ideological state apparatus means that executive, judiciary, of course, you are the executive, judiciary, legislative, and also you control the media, you create institution, and you put individuals in all this institution, education, politics, right to the grassroots. Then you control, whether you call it a deep state or not. That you control, and it is not it is not a secret that all these things has been happening since the beginning of the 1980s, for example. The whole idea of Madani is not new. It's only a slogan now. It was talked about in the 1980s and everything. And the whole idea that how do we create a structure of this, controlling the universities, controlling the institution, controlling even, in fact, the religious sermons and everything. So all these things permeate into the consciousness of the everyday life of people. Right. So like I say, this is what makes ideological change happen, and ideology is strong, and it's difficult. It doesn't matter who you replace it with, as long as a person speaks that ideology, then it will continue. And not in addition, also, what about the children of the people as leaders being put in this and that party, right? I mean, that's a generational. Right, that's a Southeast Asian phenomena. Whether you look at Philippines with the Marcos, the Duterte, and everybody there, so as a lineage of great grandfather, father, grandfather, for this and that.
Yeah, from the time of Genghis Khan till now, it's always been. We love it. We love it.
Yeah, Singapore, for example, no different. Indonesia, for example, that's there are books written on this.
So that's why even
politics. Yeah.
No, but even Doctor, I think recently when that whole issue came up when PKR's election for the deputy president post, and when Nur Izzah was going, and everyone was like nepotism. I'm like, which area in the world do you live in? The nepotism is part of our political. I mean, it's just there. It's always been there. This is not new. It's been there.
However, doesn't mean that we must accept that. This is my
true, of course, yeah. But I'm saying that it's not. I think in Malaysia, in our region, it's more like we give it more allowance, we give it more room, as opposed to say this was the US but even in Indonesia, to be fair, they actually stood up against Jokowi when he was starting to wanting to put his son in and all that. But anyway, that's a different discussion. Now, just one thing you mentioned about the effigy, right? This was another thing that came up in the aftermath of the protests, where an effigy that resembled our prime minister was beaten or sort of thing, and is now under investigation. Before this, we saw the burning of the Anwar caricature by the student protests. I personally don't agree with both of this. I think this is not dissent to me. This is a bit too extreme. But is this a product of social media, the need to have a shock value to whatever you do, to have an element of sensationalism? Is this dissent devolving in Malaysia, you think? And are things going to get worse? Or is this just anomalies?
No, not an anomaly. We are learning. We have been learning from the outside. I mean, we are not in a closed society. Our media is not closed. It's not controlled. We do not have the green dam software that controls the inflow of outflow information in China. WeChat, we are open. So we learn on how to protest. We means that the protesters learn how to protest, and they take whatever the people in the West, many Western countries protested, and transplanted it into this, transculturally bring it into this country. Now, whether that is right or wrong, it's not me to say. It's happened, right? Looking at it from an ethnographic point of view, I always look at things from making something familiar strange and making something strange familiar, right? When I see something happening, the beating of the effigy, that's okay. Now there's a message here. The medium is a message. Even the symbolism is there. The transcultural flow of ideas is from somewhere. And where is this idea going? Well, it's going to go, because the same thing also, I'm not sure whether I'm doing correctly, but even the posters of Dr. Sri NAJIB was even trampled on. Even Lim Kit Siang's images were even it's just violently damaged, for example. So all these things have have happened in the past, and it's just one way to to show dissatisfaction, right? And when the media and also the authorities take that and highlight that as a very a violent way to protest, then what do you think will happen? It exacerbates. It brings things to the open. It brings things out, and then the protesters might say that, okay, no, all right, this is action and reaction. Are we going to do this? Are we going to do this again next? Maybe yes, maybe not. However, we are being called by the police, and again today, as maybe you're aware that it is the legal battle is going to go on between that particular issue of this or that, right?
Yeah.
So we do not have we do not have a situation in which we can say to people, okay, protest, but protest politely. Don't do this. Don't do that. No, it's not.
Say your please and thank yous.
Yeah, please and thank you. You can do this. This is supposed to approve this and that, but not that. Don't beat the effigy. Don't burn the effigy. It is what it is.
It is what it is, right? Yeah. Fair enough. I mean, I do see that, but in the context of Malaysian culture, do you think these types of actions will deviate or not deviate, sorry, it will divert the attention from what is being talked about, which is Turun Anwar, to this. Now is going to be at this effigy. Same thing which I asked the student group that burned his character. I said, you guys were protesting for water for your university. You were protesting against corruption and all this. But now your entire protest has just become that one action. So do you think it takes away a bit of the wind from the sails of these protests and, focuses it on just one, it sums it up in one action?
From a cultural perspective, right? What is the Malaysian culture as it relates to the way we protest?
We are more polite and, we are more respectful.
Polite. Okay, janganlah buat macam gini,
Janganlah, sabar. Betul. That's our way. That's what I just thought.
To protest roti canai, then don't throw it all over the place. It's my favorite food, for example, right? Yes. All right. So today's youth, not just very creative, but also very expressive, and also sometimes they're expressive in the way that are not agreeable to the older generation. For example, like me, right? Maybe I don't look that old. I don't feel that old, but there's a certain ethics that you hold on to.
Yeah.
Right? If I go back to Johor, then I would see the death metalists, punk rockers, and everything. That's, wow, this is Johor culture today, right? It's not like Dondang Sayang or Sharifah Aini or whatever, SM Saleh kind of generation, right? And I appreciate all these different ways that culture has developed. Only some of they developed in a very able way. Some of this could develop in a disabled way. However, every generation has its own way of protesting, right? Free speech, how they exercise free speech, right? In the past, during the anti-Malaysian Union, everybody was wearing the songkok, right? Kain plekat. Oh, getting that, And later, during the BERSIH, for example, okay, everyone's just for civil, you know. But today, we have a generation of young people who has different ways of expressing. We have people who are being arrested for drawing caricatures of things not allowed to be going in and out of the country of this and that state, for example, right? As you know.
Yeah.
And we have even in the past the people like Zunar, for example, which I've met, very great, good gentleman, met during his exhibition here in America, and who are also protesting with all this caricature of the everything is about cincin and everything, right? His favorite was about the diamond, pink diamond, and everything.
Diamond
So
ring,
that's fine,
Rose
right?
Plus one.
Right,
Yeah.
and all kinds of things. Even to make you chuckle, make you laugh, or even make you wow, this is even brave. And even Lat, and the cartoonist Lat itself has its own way of protesting in its own way. Generationally, it's all different way of looking at things, and it will get more creative. Okay, like I say, in future protests, because people can. The more you stop people from from expressing themselves, the more will come that they will bring in more creative ways and more anger into their work, the way that they express things.
So, I mean, Doctor, I guess it's befitting that I pose the question to you. That's been asked to many people in Malaysia recently. If Anwar Turun, who would you like to see take his position?
Who next, right? We don't know. This is what I'm interested in looking at. What's going to happen the next 2 years, 3 years before general election, and what's going to happen next. But my hope has always been this, right? Please put in people who are capable enough, to run this country in all sectors, right? And let us not muddle and also confuse people. And the media should not play the game of muddling, confusing people with this and that rhetoric, and missing the point that if you want to improve education, then with the proper person in education, for example. I'm not criticizing anything yet, but this is my perspective. If you want something in economy, then make sure there is a background in economics, right? And not just economics, but everything, all aspects of economy, right? Whether it's capitalism, Marxism, everything, isms and everything, and be able to understand what the best paradigm of economic development that this country such a nation need, for example. If you understand, if you want to put something people in media, for example, don't put someone who will curb expression, but mediate, right? Be able to mediate what are the things that the media can do in order to enhance understanding of truthfulness in things, right? So these are the things. And other things. If you want to have a unit minister in charge of unity, for example, right? Then how do you bring someone who is very well versed in everything, transcultural philosophy, different religion, and be able to do with any extremist who wants to you bring to this country, and be able to say that, wait a minute, this is not right. What you're doing, what you're saying, this is multicultural. You have to respect our fellow nations, and this is the way to do it. Let us have a dialogue so that I can show you what actually is supposed to be said, and why you cannot come in here and give a drama anymore, for example. And finally, fundamentally, the leader, for example, should be able to be someone who, true to the teachings of any religion, not be able to bring in people who has with a shady character, not be able to bring in for the sake of maintaining stability and things like that. And then that negates the whole idea that religion doesn't matter whether Islam, Hinduism, Buddhism values honesty, truthfulness, and also clear conscience in order to do this, and not be able to go up there and use all the Machiavellian ways to control everything. And it's and after that, you want to stay there for a long, long time so that you will not be investigated for this and that. So that, I think, it goes, it goes very well with all the succession of leadership that we have, not just in this country, but any country. Doesn't matter whether it's in Turkey, whether it's in the United States, whether it's in Russia. We follow the same thing. But we don't have to say that, well, other countries have worse. No, Malaysia is a beautiful country with a multicultural mix, and this is our strength. And our weakness is not be able to harness all this energy from all this, and our strength is not be able to say no. Corruption is corruption. You out, you go. I don't want to be you to be in my cabinet, for example, right?
Okay.
So that is what it is. It's better than giving handouts to people before voting. It is to really, truly, do the things that you say based on the principles that you promote, and also based on your true meaning as a human being. Subscribing or believing in this and that religion. So I think this is a concept what Plato once said, that philosopher rulers should rule the country, to rule the state, right? And democracy is messy. Democracy is so wide, so broad, but today's democracy is who runs the country, who votes, what kind of majority votes for whoever. So that's a dilemma. So lastly, right, the things that we need to do is we have to be turned into a learning society, ethical society. Number three, we need to be aware that we are living in a technologically humanistic world that has to be balanced, and we need to create citizens which are culturally and globally aware, and then we need to develop entrepreneurship, right? And entrepreneurship that develop everybody else. And finally, social justice that we need to teach in others, so that we can create leaders. If not now, if not 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, but we have to move on, right? Just like anything else, slow but steady, but surely.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you so much, Dr. Azly, for your time and for analyzing the Himpunan Turun Anwar and sharing your very unique perspectives.
And I don't have any answer, Vinod, right? All this, you have, our audience have the answer. I'm giving perspective based on the things that I read, observe, and also I feel how they should move on.
Fantastic. No, it's fantastic insight. I think it'll make a lot of people think about it differently. And so thank you so much, Doctor. So we'll see you again, hopefully soon in a different topic, different discussion as we discuss. So guys, that was Dr. Azly Rahman. And he'll be joining us from the US on many other occasions, discussing various topics. And we'll be doing a deep dive on many, many different topics of politics, religion, etc. Things that I grew up with in his books and all that. So it'll be a very interesting few episodes coming your way. So guys, thank you so much for joining us for this 1 hour plus session on Himpunan Turun Anwar. We hope we answered your questions. I hope that you guys have a different perspective now, I hope this conversation made you think and makes you analyze even more. Personally, for me, I thought that it is a sign of a healthy democracy in our country. It is a sign that we are moving the right way in terms of how open we are to alternative views. However, of course, as I mentioned in my interview just now, the conversation with Dr. Azly Rahman, in the aftermath, of course, there's been a few question marks that have come up. But regardless, that is democracy, and people have the right to express their opinions the way they want. At the end of the day, it's good to know that we live in a very inclusive country, and a country that respects different views. So guys, take care. We'll see you soon. Many great interviews coming your way. Dr. Azly will be back on different topics as well. So stay tuned for that. We have YBs coming on, MPs coming on, different authors, and we'll be looking at various political topics coming our way. There's a huge guest coming on, which I can't want to say yet. I don't want to jinx it, but we have some big names coming on as well. So stay tuned for all of that. We'll see you soon. Bye.